Electricast.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at usaa.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, and today we're talking with Maria Malec. This wellness and lifestyle architect, conscious educator, author, self-taught chef, speaker, and good vibe pollinator, Maria has confidently taught hundreds of people informed self-mastery and self-reliance skills to overcome rising wellness and lifestyle hurdles. Experiencing a full sensory life is Maria's zone of genius and gifting. She's proven to be able to create personalized lifestyle systems. Her Keep It Simple self-care method is designed to help her clients find their unique flow. When implemented, Maria's 5 pillars of foundational wellness assure her clients sustained success. Maria, I am excited to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, before we get into your expertise as a wellness and lifestyle architect, I'd really love to hear a bit more about your background. Can you take us back to the beginning and let us know, what pivotal moments led you to this work and how did you know this was your calling?
Thank you for asking. It's a great question. It all started about 26 years ago when I started having children. Now I have 5 children. They're all adults. And someone in our family had gotten injured medically. And it made me question everything about health and wellness. And that's when I dove deep into natural holistic wellness. And I started reading and attending seminars and classes and trial and error with a lot of things, practicing on my family. I like to say that I have a huge human experiment, if you will, with my family, trying all these things, seeing what works, seeing what didn't work, and basically just want to share all this information with the world. Because as you know, the world that we live in right now is super toxic. People are overwhelmed, over-medicated, and over-processed. And I want to help turn all that around and help people take healthy back.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so important. Self-care, I think a lot of people look at it from a different perspective of not really what it's about. It's really about your well-being and your health and your wellness and taking care of yourself. So I want to ask you before we move on, was there an actual personal experience though that really, I know you did say someone in your family was injured and you don't have to go into the details about that, but for yourself, when that became something that you started looking into, was there something that you learned that really shaped how you approach wellness and self-mastery?
There wasn't anything pivotal. And it was at the beginning of our family. And when this incident happened with a family member, it made me question everything. And 30 years ago, we weren't as processed in the food industry as we are today. And what I learned just bothered me. All the additives and preservatives in our foods affect our well-being. and they disrupt our body's natural function. So if that happens, then people have to turn to pharmaceuticals. And then I started researching that whole thing. And where it turns out that people are just managing their sickness and nobody's really getting well. And that bothered me. And I was all about nature and doing things from scratch. My family's background, they're Italian immigrants. So I learned at a very early age to do everything from scratch. And I was continuing the tradition. But as the food companies and pharmaceutical companies were taking over everything, I was finding that it was affecting everything. And my friends and their kids and people who were chronically ill, it just didn't feel right to me. And I wanted a solution and I wanted to do it right the first time. I didn't want to have to overcome some sort of chronic illness. And it was basically just through observation and just feeling things weren't right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely it does. And one of the things that you were talking about, like how our food is manufactured even today, is even more so. Like I come from that background too, where, everything was made fresh. Like there wasn't any of the, the canned goods. Everything came from either the garden, it was picked from the garden, it was specifically seeds were planted, having a garden to have fresh food. Now, I lived in the city, so part of that too was making sure then, okay, if my mom couldn't have a garden, she would make sure that we'd have like the fresh vegetables that went with our meals. And fast food was never really a staple of our home. It was a treat once in a while.
Right.
And so, yeah, I really agree with you there. And the other thing too, which I also learned was that they were also putting flavor enhancers into specific foods to want us to want them. And I
Yeah.
always thought like, why do you need to flavor enhance our food in a way that becomes addictive? And I think that's really what it
Right.
is, right? It's becoming addictive. So I really appreciate that
Right.
someone like yourself that is saying like, no, I would rather let's start from the right way and make sure that I'm not coming off of this lifestyle where now I have to figure out how to fix my body, but rather how can I actually support and maintain a healthy lifestyle with especially, being a mom and your family and you want to teach them. So I really appreciate that. So thank you so much for sharing because I think a lot of people don't even think about that aspect of our food. They might think about, oh, canned foods, like, I don't wanna feed my kids canned
Right.
foods, but
Right.
it goes even further than that because it's
It
in
does.
they are doing a lot even just to if you eat meat, if you eat poultry, if you eat beef, if you eat, even fish, they're doing things to our food still, and so this can be pretty scary.
Well, let me add another element to it that we didn't have back then is EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. We have all these different electronics. We have all these synthetic materials that we're wearing on our body, from our shoes to our clothes. And actually, I just bought recently earthing shoes that actually have a copper rivet on the bottom, which grounds you just like walking barefoot. So we're putting things on our feet that is shielding us from the natural elements of frequency that we would get walking barefoot outside. We're putting these synthetic clothing. So essentially, we are encapsulated in rubber, in polyester, elastine, rayon. All these things are disrupting our body's natural function.
Mm.
And we're wondering why we have headaches or brain fog or things just don't seem right. And all those things affect our mood and our thinking and our everyday functioning. I know people like their home to smell good, but these plugins and candles and the things we're putting in our laundry, I mean, Are you exhausted hearing the list? I mean, the list goes on. And we are bombarding ourselves with that 24/7 when you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
all a disruption.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even going further, even the plastics, like we're now consuming plastic that, is in our food now too. So I mean, it's pretty scary. And I think if we actually woke up and started taking stock of all of those things, it would probably be extremely scary to actually understand all of the things that we're doing to ourselves. And then
Mhm.
that helps us to see like why people are getting sick all the time. So, anyways, I want to move on from that.
Sure, sure.
I truly appreciate that. So, so many women, especially those who are building businesses or leading busy lives, whether they're moms and have businesses. I know a lot, I've had moms on the podcast who are homeschooling their kids, running their businesses. This was by choice. And I know a lot of the time they feel like they're doing everything that they're supposed to be doing, yet
Mhm.
a lot of the time still end up feeling exhausted or out of sync. So why is personalized wellness for you, do you believe is so important? And how can women create a system that actually supports them instead of adding to their stress?
I believe that the first step to anyone making conscious change is awareness. Awareness of your environment, awareness of the people you surround yourself with, the food you eat, how much movement you get. All those things I talked about earlier are the contributing factors to us not feeling well on every level, from our mindset to our homes and environments to our bodies. And it just affects everything. So you have to start taking an analysis of what's in your kitchen, what's under the sink, what's in your pantry, what's in your bathroom, what's in your laundry room. All those things are contributing factors. And then it's taking away from who we are as people, I believe. And then we have the added pressure, I believe, of social media, where there's so much out there that our brains are not having enough time to process things. We're scrolling and we're looking at things. So our brain isn't able to complete something. And then there's also the comparison factor. Comparison is the thief of joy. And if you're looking at all these different things and comparing it to your life and saying, well, I'm not doing like her, or I don't measure up, and then we start that negative self-sabotaging talk. So all these things are stacked on top of each other against us. And it's a matter of simplifying and taking account of all these things that we're exposed to, and maybe changing some things, eliminating some things, so that we can get back to the original design of humanity, I believe.
Yeah, because things have changed. Like, I feel like I love the idea of social media. I love the idea of the internet and all of these apps, these tools that can connect us with people from different parts of the world. We don't have to be sitting across from each other to
Right.
record a podcast where we might have had to back in the day. I really truly feel like there's just so much that we forgot that it's not all about that. I think that's where the hustle culture really is
Mm-hmm.
taking more control because of all of this stuff. Like you were saying, we're bombarded with all of these choices, with the comparison syndrome because so and so is doing this. Well, that's their life and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't have to be yours. We get so caught up in that we should be like everyone else when
Mm-hmm.
we don't need to. So I love that. And which really actually segues me into my next question because you have what you call the 5 pillars of foundational wellness. So can you walk us through what those are and how they set the foundation for lasting well-being?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. The 5 pillars, and I've been living these 5 pillars for the past 2.5 decades or more. And I actually heard a presentation many, many years ago, and it was just something that resonated with me. And the 5 pillars are: your mindset is the first one, because you can't make change until you realize that something needs to be changed. If it's not working, something needs to be changed. And the mindset aspect of it is there's something I call the be, do, have formula. If your life's not working the way you would like it, then you have to ask yourself, who do you need to become to be that person to have that desire or attain that goal? And then what do you need to do to become the person? Because once you become the person, you do the action and then you have your desired result. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I truly believe that. I think a lot of people though feel that it's almost like they feel like when they have it, then it's like that whole saying, like, when I have this, I'll be happy. And it's like, no,
Right,
it's actually the opposite. Be happy now for what you have, and that will
right.
draw in more things. I know people say, oh, that the idea of the law of attraction. Let's just take that out of the equation. Why don't we just talk about your mood, your energy will draw in those things?
Hmm.
And then, because I truly believe that. I feel like if you are a negative person, that's what you're going to start to mirror out to the world, and the world's going to mirror that back. If you are
Yeah.
wanting change and you're saying, okay, I don't have that right now, but I'm grateful for what I do have, and allowing yourself to tap into gratitude and allowing more to come into your life, you become more grateful even more so, and and they pick up, and your attitude is good, because attitude really is it goes a long way, whether it's negative or not. So I really love that.
Mhm.
One of the
Right.
things I want
And
to ask, yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just going to give an example because someone might be asking, well, what does that mean? So let's just say this is super easy. I want to make $1 million. Okay. Right.
Hmm.
Are you the type of person now that if you made $1 million, you can handle it? Are you a steward? Are you a good steward of your money now? Do you have the habits and the behavior of a person who's making that kind of money? You know what I mean? If you have a scarcity mindset, you can't be making $1 million with a scarcity mindset. So, what are the things do you need to do to change your mind environment, change your home environment, change your body and your behaviors? So, that's small example, a short example of the be, do, have. And a lot of people, they want all these things, but they're not willing to make the adjustment to their behaviors, to their negative sabotaging mindsets, and to actions that will work against you instead of for you to support what you're looking to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. So now I know you have four other pillars. What are they?
Yes.
You want to go over them briefly, or you can
Sure.
go into
Yeah, yeah,
detail?
yeah. Real briefly. So the first one's mindset. Then I address a person's environment. What is your home? Are you cluttered? Do you have systems in place in your home for your home to run smoothly? Then the third pillar is your body. What changes do you need to make to your body that will contribute to the life that you want to achieve? And then there's spirituality. I don't necessarily go to the spirituality first because if you're in a poor mental space and you're living in an environment that doesn't build, nurture, and support you, then you can't even think about your creator and honoring the life that you've been given. And then the fifth pillar is movement. Movement is life. You can't get out of bed. You can't live your life. It doesn't mean that you have to be like a CrossFit junkie or that you have to, go hard every day. It just means everyday movement because when we get older, people are afraid of falling. And if your body's not strong, you can't catch yourself. You're easily going to break your bodies or you're going to injure yourself. So, movement is super important. And the aesthetics, the weight loss, or whatever it is you want to achieve in the body, that will naturally come as a result of it.
Yeah, I love that. One of the questions I did want to ask you though is If there's one area that you think is where we need the most support with, what area would that be as far as, for me, I would think it would be the mindset because I think that kind of it supports everything. But
Yes.
do you believe that, or
Yeah.
is there something else that you think women need the most support with?
No, it's 100% the mindset. And what I like to say, what's the identity, the lie that you've been believing about yourself? Because we women are super hard on ourselves. And, with the comparison, other moms, even if you are not heavy duty on social media, but you have circles of friends, you know, we're still comparing ourselves to each other. And I believe that you have to be confident in yourself first, and then that'll be reflected out because what you're feeling on the inside is what you reflect out. And
Yeah.
you could be smiling on the outside, but you could be crying on the inside. And there's a lot of people that I come across that are just that they're wearing a mask. It's a facade. They want everyone to think everything is great. We feel it's a burden to share what's going on. And when you think about it, and I even remembered when I was young and there were knitting circles and sewing circles and, women getting together around the table and sharing their lives, supporting each other, grieving with each other, and helping each other with our families. We've gotten to a point in this world, I believe, that we feel like we have to do it all alone and that it's weakness to ask for help. And it's actually a strength to be able to say, hey, I need some help because we're built for community.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you have a keep it simple self-care method. Is this the 5 pillars, or is this
Yeah.
something that okay, so it is the 5 pillars. No, and I love that because I think, again, the mindset, the environment, our body, our spirituality, having something bigger than ourselves to believe in can give us that
Yeah.
spark. And then
Mhm.
the movement, keeping your body moving, again, movement is life. And if you can't move, it's extremely tough. I know, and especially my mom right now, she's 88 and she's finding it hard to move around. Like you were just saying, the falls, she might not be moving fast, but because she's not taking care of herself, that can cause the falls, even if you're not intending to fall. So I love the fact that you brought
Right,
that up,
right. Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Uh,
my dad's gonna be turning 98. So we're going to be celebrating that. And to this day, he still stretches every day. He doesn't miss a day unless, something happens. So he's really proof in the pudding right there that you've got to be vigilant about moving. And sometimes our bodies get achy because of lack of movement.
mhm.
And 30 minutes a day, you could go back and forth, even, within your home or take some stairs or whatever you can just to keep the blood flowing. That's the real thing is getting the blood flowing, moving the fascia and the muscles. And it really is life. Movement is part of life,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah, absolutely. So, as entrepreneurs, let's talk entrepreneurial because a lot of women that are, this is what the show is about, empowering women, especially in business, empowering women around the world who also might want to start something new. This is one of the reasons why I started the podcast, is to help women find other women who are doing something maybe similar, or to give them that spark, to give them that encouragement, that empowerment to step into something else. One of the things I've noticed, and it's in a lot of conversations that I have,
Hmm.
is that we face challenges like burnout, which is most times isn't on the radar because instead, at least the women I've talked to tend to look at the symptoms as one-offs rather than reviewing their patterns to see like what is contributing to them being tired all the time or maybe low motivation. They're looking at just a one-off thing. So one of the things I want to ask you is, what are some, do you believe, some of the biggest hurdles you've seen women face, and how can they build resilience to move through them?
I think the biggest hurdle is getting out of one's comfort zone is I don't like to do the same thing every day like clockwork. There's a lot of different things that I like to do so that I don't get bored and it keeps things fresh. And I think another big hurdle is that a lot of people are just trying to shut off their emotions, resisting pain, which obviously no one wants to experience pain, but we're spending so much time avoiding pain and turning off our emotions that why do we even have them? I believe a full sensory life is what we've been given, and all those sensory elements are alerting us to what needs attention. So when you turn off the bad, you're turning off the good at the same time. In my opinion, experience a full sensory life, the good, the bad, and the ugly is how we get through it. The more that we put things on a back burner or stuff our emotions, they literally get stuck in our body. And then eventually, it's kind of like a clogged pipe. When it first starts getting clogged, the water's slow going down the drain, and then pretty soon the water doesn't drain at all. And now you have a major problem and you have a bigger thing to fix. So if you address things as they show up and you communicate, then you're never going to get to a chronic problem. You're not going to have a crisis because you're handling it as you go. It's kind of like when you're cooking and cleaning as you go, instead of having a whole sink full of pots and pans at the end that you don't want to clean up. You clean as you go, and then it makes it easier to get through the process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I, you're speaking my language. I definitely know that I know that people like to say that, oh, I'm in tune with my emotions. But a lot of that time is that there are emotions from our past that they haven't dealt with that are still influencing them today. Just by the way that they react to situations in their life. And if
Right.
they can look back at like, where did that begin? That's one of the things that I do is I help people to take a closer look at like the person that they were before that kind of shaped them and what they're doing today, because we just tend to kind of move on, especially as soon as we get to an adult. It's like we're hitting the ground running for more. That's what just the society is all about. Where can I get more? So let's just forget about all that stuff and push it down. It doesn't matter. I've dealt with it or it's in my past. I shouldn't have to deal with it. But I know just from personal experience that when I finally actually, even though I thought I had dealt with past things, when I did, I found the most freedom because it allowed me, number one, to release its hold, but number two, to be able to use what I have gone through in my life to support other women who may have had that similar journey. And the only reason I can say that is because of experiences where I
Hmm.
have shared and people have said, thank you for sharing because it was what I was thinking, or it's something that I
Hmm.
experienced and I didn't feel comfortable to come forward. But I've always really pretty much been that person that if I don't say, like, I don't just speak and not have like any thought behind what I share, but I also like to be able to encourage other people to speak up, to go maybe for the very first time first in their life to share something that they can get support around. And I think that's really important. So I have loved this conversation today. I have one last question. And I think it's kind of, I guess it goes together with, it's like, I'm going to ask it, I think, in a way, just the thing that I think people feel like is like when I was saying earlier, should women feel like, they're doing all the things. Like, you're a mom, you brought up three
Hmm.
children, you had your life, but you were able to have a lifestyle. You chose a lifestyle and you leaned into that. But not a lot of people did that. A lot of people are only waking up to the fact that, oh, I really actually don't feel good about my life. And I think partly that COVID, when it happened, I think that really kind of brought awareness to people, because when we were told that we couldn't go out and mingle with other people, that we had to stay home, social isolation, those types of things, that it made people actually become really aware of their life. So with that being said, what would you say to a woman who feels like she's doing all the right things, but she still feels like she's not thriving, or she's not thriving? And, what do you think that would be the one thing that could really help this person to change their life?
Well, I have spoken with women who feel that way. And I believe we have to look at you talked about having, let's say, past trauma, and maybe someone hasn't gone through with that. It's really the emotions, unresolved emotions. And, if something happened when we were a child, we don't have the mental capacity to cope with it, and it gets unresolved. And if you're triggered by something, that says that you haven't really gotten over that, and that it's still present, it's still alive within your body. And I know a lot of people who are experiencing adverse physical ailments, discomforts, diagnosis. I don't even like to put labels on things, is because there's something in their past that's been unresolved. And you know that you've gotten over something when you could view your life like a movie, and that you can view something in your past without getting emotional about it. Or I know people they just keep talking about the same things over and over again, and you could tell that they're not really over it. So whether
Mhm.
it's with some professional or a pastor or counselor, that you can dive deep into it. All the things that are unresolved are the things that are causing us dis-ease in the present. And I know people are super fit, they eat the right foods and they're doing the right things, and they still don't feel right, or things aren't going their way. Then you have to address the mindset. You have to address the emotions that are still unresolved. And it all comes down to that, to the unresolved emotions. And I believe that's where someone's got to start. And again, it's what's the lie identity you've been believing about yourself? And everything starts in the spirit realm, in the ethereal, and then comes down into the physical. And I think a lot of people we're so caught up in the busyness of life that we're not giving ourselves enough chance to be quiet and to listen and to get feedback from our environment and how it's affecting ourselves. And I think it's a matter of getting quiet, not doing more, not getting more, but actually doing less. And that's my answer for that.
Yeah, no,
I
but I
don't know if
appreciate
that's
it.
helpful,
No, yeah, it
but
is. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was perfect. I just want to say thank you for spending time with me today, because I love your approach to wellness and self mastery. It's a breath of fresh air. I love how you simplify self care and lifestyle in a way that actually works. You're definitely speaking my language. Like I said, since we're in the same wellness space, so much of what you shared aligns with what I teach, helping women, create those sustainable systems that support their
that's
time,
the word.
energy, and their
Right.
emotional well being, right? It has to
Yes.
be sustainable, it has to be functional. And it's always refreshing for me to connect with someone like yourself who understands that true success isn't about doing more, but living in alignment with what matters. So again, I've
Yeah.
really enjoyed
Yes.
hearing what you've created in life that flows, setting up wellness systems that support success, and how
Yes.
women can actually build those habits that really truly nourish them without adding more to the plate. So I really appreciate you took time with me today. Thank you. Thank
I
you so
appreciate
much.
you. Thank you, Leslie. Yeah. I really hope that whoever's listening, they understand that there's actually more freedom in creating boundaries and systems, and then you can live freely within those. But, how do you keep a herd in the field? You have fences.
Yeah.
So apply that to our lives and create these boundaries, and then you have freedom within them. So
Yeah.
those are my parting.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, and I mean, it's something, again, you're speaking to the choir here because I often say there is freedom in structure because people look at structure and think, oh, that's rigid, but it's not. There is that freedom when you have that structure, and I love
Right.
that. So thank you so much. I
Thank
just want to
you.
encourage our listeners. Yeah, I just want to encourage our listeners if they want to connect with you directly and learn more about your work, that they can find your information in the show notes because
Yeah.
I really
Great.
feel like what you're doing is great work. Remember, everyone, your well being isn't a luxury, it's the foundation for everything that you do in life. When you create space for what truly matters, everything in your life and your business aligns more effortlessly. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time. Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Electricast.